Thank you very much, everybody, for joining. It's good to see so many people here to listen to us. Now, just to invite you, my name is Liam Francis. I'm the Senior Account Manager at Capitalize, and this is the latest in our series of webinars for building better businesses. And the topic today is invoicing best practices. I'm delighted to welcome the Operations and Finance Manager at Capitalize, Louise. Hello, Louise.
Hello, Liam.
Thank you very much for making time to join us today. Yeah, Louise, incredibly experienced in all matters, finance and operations, and great experience with invoicing, and she'll be discussing many ways in which you can, utilize your invoicing process and optimize and sort of leverage it for a better business in general. So let me go through the talking points. First of all, we're going to discuss why invoicing is a growth tool. We're going to discuss what the anatomy of a compliant invoice is, payment terms and late payment law, chasing payments without losing relationships, how you can better automate your invoicing process with digital tools, and then finally, at the end, there will be a sort of 5-10 minute Q&A where you can ask us anything relating to invoices or finance in general. Um, so look, first of all, most businesses treat invoicing as pure administration, but the ones that grow fastest treat it as a tool. And I'm delighted to hand over to Louise now to go through how that works.
Thank you, Liam. So let's take a look at why invoicing is a strategic tool. So according to Xero's Small Business Insights, a frightening 23.4 billion pounds is owed to SMEs in the UK. That's real money that's not reaching small businesses. So a profitable business can still fail if it runs out of cash before invoices are paid. And the cash flow gap is the number one reason for SMEs going bust, not lack of profitability. So getting paid on time is a strategic advantage. And did you know that businesses with a consistent invoicing process tend to get paid around 11 days faster? And that is non-negligible time frame. So your invoice is also part of the final impression that you will leave your client. So make it count by using a process that signals professionalism. Plus, faster payment cycles ultimately reduce your reliance on external credit. So let's look at what items are legally required on a compliant invoice and what the additional best practices are that make your invoice look even more professional. So on the left column, any of the required fields, if you miss one, your invoice could be invalidated for a VAT claim, and that's probably a headache that you don't really need. So to add to this, there are a number of items on the right column which are a good value add and like a clear due date that sets expectations. Adding your bank details, which is a minimum to be able to get paid. Adding maybe a clickable link. This has shown to improve payment times by around 3 days. However, they do come at a cost. It's also a good idea to state your late payment terms upfront so they are easier to enforce in case you need to. And finally, always make sure that you ask your client if they require a purchase order number, because if they do and it's not on the invoice, then your invoice could get stuck in the client's approval process for weeks. So the good news is that the UK law is on your side, particularly the Late Payment Act, which applies to B4B transactions. You don't even need to put this in your contract to be entitled to enforce it. So under the Late Payment of Commercial Debt Act 1998, you have the legal right to charge statutory interest on overdue invoices. And this interest compounds every day, which can become meaningful on large amounts. You are also entitled to a fixed compensation for late payment, and this regardless of the invoice size. Then the default payment term for to be transactions is 30 days. And you must remember that legally you cannot agree to payment terms longer than 60 days with larger companies. Of course, weighing all this against the damage it could cause your relationship, this is a commercial decision that obviously needs to be taken into account. So how do you chase payments without damaging relationships? Because to be honest, it's not it sometimes feels awkward just to be chasing. So the key in implementing is to have a clear system, and this removes the emotion, and it just becomes a process. So, for example, if you have a 30-day payment term, you could send a reminder to pay the invoice a few days before the due date. A lot of people do it. I don't personally like it very much. Um, one day after or a couple of days after your due date, just send a friendly reminder, just assuming good faith and just asking if maybe they have or haven't received the invoice and if there are any issues. Because most late payments are due to admin errors, they don't have malicious intent. However, in my experience, there are some companies who only pay when they've been chased. So it's kind of a process for them, and not a very good one, and it's not a very good relationship. But they need to be chased so that they pay you. Let's say around 5 days after the due date, you can send a formal email just stating that the invoice is overdue. And if you're still not paid, then a few days later, send another reminder with maybe a more personal touch. I think after 30 days, it's time to make a phone call, just because it will be more effective than another email, because it's just harder to ignore somebody who calls you. So always keep a paper trail of your chases, because they have to be used as evidence if you need to escalate the matter. So the good news is that all this process, a lot of it can be automated. So accounting softwares, maybe next slide, please, Liam. Yes, thanks. Accounting softwares can handle auto send and recurring invoices. And also you can enable automated chase reminders, which are very helpful. Then payment links can also be added to your invoices using something like Stripe or Go Cardless. This reduces friction and allows people to pay in one click and have an instant confirmation. You could also use direct debit for repeat customers. And finally, just make sure your reconciliation is done in a timely manner, so that reminders don't go out automatically to people who have already paid, but only to those who are genuinely late. I think unnecessary reminders are a waste of time for everybody, and they do look unprofessional. So to summarize, I have a case study that is not unusual. Cash flow crunches at profitable businesses are very common. So here we had a 12-person marketing agency who was consistently waiting over 50 days to get paid. So it forced them to use their expensive overdraft to cover payroll. And this, despite again being profitable. So the fix was a combination of better process and one financial product. So they reviewed their invoice template, added a payment link, 30-day term, and the late payment clause. Then they automated their reminders and switched their bigger retainer clients to direct debit. And finally, they used Capitalize to secure an invoice finance facility for one large project, receiving 85% of a £28,000 invoice upfront. Getting this money in advance helped them to smooth the cash gap. And the result was that their payment time dropped from 58 days to 17. And after a few months, they no longer needed their expensive overdraft. So now I hand over to you, Liam, too.
Mhm. Thank you very much, Louise, and certainly a lot of actionable insights there. So, look, how can Capitalize help get paid and keep the cash flowing through your business? I mean, first and foremost, we work with a great number of invoice finance providers. Now, we have over 130 lenders on our panel. Not all of those are invoice finance providers, but we do work with pretty much all the players in the market that can offer different solutions, whether that's invoice discounting, whether that's factoring, confidential, non-confidential, and declared. We work with across the market, and we can access up to 90% of outstanding invoice value within 24 hours. Some solutions do take a little bit longer, but we do certainly have access to some very swift invoice finance funders, and we will always, search across our 130 lenders to make sure we get the right fit for you. Um, with Capitalize for Business, you can check your business credit profile to understand how lenders see your business. Generally speaking, a strong credit profile means a faster approval and better rates. And not just your own business credit profile, but our service also on one of our paid plans allows you to check um, the credit scores of your debtors and also suppliers. So you can see what terms they're paying at and keep an eye on that. And that might be why you're getting paid late by a company because you'll be able to see from their credit report that that is common across what they're doing. And then just look in general credit health, with our funding search, if the cash flow gaps are a wider challenge than invoice finance can fix, then we will identify the right product from revolving credit to term loans. So please do, if you're experiencing any level of cash flow issue, please do pick the phone up to us or send us an inquiry via email because, whether it's invoice finance or a different type of solution, we will absolutely be able to help you bridge the gap. So look, next steps. First and foremost, review your invoice template today based on Louise's guidance earlier in the presentation. Like check it's got all the required regulatory fields, a payment link, and your late payment terms. Set up one automated reminder, like even one can make a big difference. Check your business credit profile via Capitalize. It's free, takes 2 minutes, and it won't affect your score. And you can book in a funding conversation with myself or any one of my colleagues. And if cash flow is a persistent challenge, you can speak to us. And as I've said in the previous slide, we will find a solution for the business. Now, I am going to leave this QR code on the screen for about 30 seconds. For anybody on the call to photograph with their smartphone, because that will take you to a landing page at Capitalize that will help you get set up and apply to look at the credit score and look at potential funding. So yeah, that's available to anyone now who wants to go ahead. And coming up next month, we have email marketing webinar from our head of marketing, Hasina, which will absolutely be worth attending. Hasina is greatly experienced in the marketing world, and I'm sure she'll be able to share a lot of information and insights regarding email marketing. Now, we do have time for a Q&A, obviously not compulsory, but if anybody has any questions to ask, there is a chat function which allows you to put questions in there, or if you pop a chat in to ask the question via audio, I can allow for that. But yeah, if anyone has any questions, the floor is yours to be able to ask. Nope, looks like we may have covered everything. So what I will say there is thank you ever so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Louise, for sharing your insights there. Super insightful and very, very useful.
Thank you,
And
Liam.
I look forward to, yeah, thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing everybody on the next one next month with Asina. Thanks very much. Bye bye.